The Great Pyramid of Giza, an architectural marvel and one of the seven ancient wonders of the world. Constructed with about 2.3 million blocks and weighing over 6 million tons, it acts as the resting place of the pharaoh Khufu. Or does it? How was it constructed? What mysteries have yet to be found? Does pyramid power exist? Let's find out. Peret Em Heru for the Prisoners is an Egyptian-themed horror adventure game released in May of 1998. The title is derived from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, a text consisting of magical spells to help guide the dead in the underworld to the afterlife. Made in RPG maker Dante 98-2, the game was developed by Makoto Yaotani under the pseudonym Makoto Cerise and composed by Kei Mizuho. Influenced by fellow Dante 98 game Corpse Party, the movies of Indiana Jones, and the manga artist Junji Ito, Yaotani wanted to push the limits of what commercial games could do at the time in regards to gore and violence in horror. Even though his engine of choice had many limitations, such as having 16 bits of color and a focus on combat systems, he enjoyed the constraints to push his creativity. The setting of a dark pyramid allowed him to focus the color palette, and tinkering with the battle systems allowed him to create a unique puzzle-solving concept. We're going to do a full playthrough of the game, going through its story and gameplay mechanics. If you don't want the game spoiled, I'll leave a link to the game's English translation created by Memories of Fear in the description below so you can play it for yourself. By the end, we're going to figure out if some secrets are better left buried, or if Yaotani achieved his goals of creating a unique and horrifying concept. Set in modern-day Egypt at the Great Pyramid of Giza, Peret Em Heru starts with archaeologist Professor Tetsuya Tsuchida and his assistant, Koji Kuroe, discussing the status of their survey. Through the use of a local hired hand and explosives, Kuroe states that they've presently reached a depth of 25 meters, but electromagnetic findings have yet to discover anything reliable. Though concerned with the SCA, or Supreme Council of Antiquities, discovering their unsanctioned expedition, the professor assures him that the pharaoh's tomb lies beneath. He reminds him as long as he cooperates, a once-in-a-lifetime discovery and treasure await him. After a round of explosives, the miner shouts that the bedrock has given way to a chamber of some kind. Tsuchida heads down to explore, is in awe. Man-made stone walls, a subterranean chamber more advanced than what lies above. As Kuroe joins him, he exclaims that the World Heritage Committee be damned, that this is what he lives for. Delving deeper inside, the two discover a door at the end of a large room. Tsuchida asks Kuroe to grab the hired hand to get it open, and ponders while waiting for them. Will he discover the pharaoh before the SCA catches on to him? If only he had the manpower, more time, and this once-in-a-lifetime discovery would be his. Kuroe returns with a miner, and he begins to pry open the door. He heave-hoes, and then heaves his last when something slices his head off, spilling his blood across the floor. Shocked at the man's death, the two quickly compose themselves. On closer inspection, they realize a man-made trap, a decapitation wire, was lining the door. With his team of researchers not due to arrive until tomorrow, Tsuchida decides on an all-or-nothing gamble. A Japanese tour group was near the pyramid. With them, and Kuroe, he would have the necessary manpower to continue exploring. He instructs Kuroe to hide the body, and he heads outside to gather them. This sets the tone of the game. Tsuchida is unhinged. The end result is all that matters, and someone's death? It's just a bump in the road. The pyramid is bizarre, full of mystery and unknown dangers. Similar to a cheesy horror film, there will be death, there will be gore, a quirky line or two, and I'm all for it. With the newly recruited workforce, Tsuchida asks Ayuto Asaki, a high school graduate and our main character, to lead the charge to places unknown. He'll be right behind him, but first, he needs to tie his shoelaces. Safety first, after all. Flashlight in hand, Ayuto ventures forward through the passage, discovering an underground river on the other side. One of the teenage girls asks about why Ayuto was chosen, and Tsuchida explains through his superb deductive reasoning that it was his baseball cap that showed he had exceptional physical prowess. You know, when I was younger, I was told to stay away from strangers that might lead me to dark, scary places. But then again, I didn't have Ayuto's baseball cap. After everyone travels through the passage, Tsuchida asks Ayuto to become the surveyor of the expedition. You have the option to say no, but we need to discover if pyramid power is real. So say yes, and the game officially begins. Before we can explore, let's meet our crew for the expedition. Ayuto doesn't know everyone yet, but we'll get to know them as the story progresses. Tall man is Soji Mizumi, a selfish journalist looking for his next big scoop. The other high school graduates are Nei Ichikawa, a tomboy with a blunt personality who has a crush on Ayuto, Kyosuke Hino, a good-natured hothead who's not afraid to speak his mind, and Yoko Nogisaka, a demure, timid girl who Kyosuke has a crush on. The tour guide is Sai Otogi. She's kind, trustworthy, and tries to keep everyone safe. Little girl is Rin Tsukihara. She's a bit of a brat who wants attention, but is a good person at heart. Overweight man is Mitsuru Koeji. He's lazy, pompous, and set in his ways. And last, redhead girl is Sayori Shinoda, a pessimist who just seems to hate everyone. After introductions, we examine the river and learn it glows due to bioluminescent plankton, and before we can learn more, we get assaulted by a giant fish, and this prompts our first battle. Yep, this horror game features turn-based combat. In a battle, you have 4 options: attack, actions, items, and defend. Attack is a single hit on an enemy. Actions are your special abilities, which cost AP, similar to mana in other games. Items let you use your consumables, such as a first aid spray, and defend reduces the damage of an attack. Combat overall is pretty easy. Most enemies can be beaten by spamming attack, but it's pretty fun to go through your party member's special actions. For example, the little girl Rin has an ability called Flailing Arms. For me, the ability didn't do much, but the mental image of her whirlwinding her arms and slaying a monster like a giant fish, I just thought pretty funny. If you get injured, you can head back to Kuroe and you'll heal your party back to full. After punching the fish to death, Tsuchida allows Ayuto to take one other person while he explores, giving us the action Recruit Teammates, which we can access from the menu screen. The menu screen's pretty straightforward. Items let you see your inventory, stat gives you details on your party, switch lets you change your party members' positions, and system lets you save and load. There's no weapons or armor to equip in the game, but your characters do level up and learn more actions. The action menu is the essential option here. It's what makes this game unique among the other RPG Maker horror games. Peret Em Heru's puzzles have an interesting twist. Puzzles are not simply finding key A to open door B, or push buttons in a specific sequence. You need to use your actions such as push, crouch, and shout to solve them. Actions activate on the first tile the direction your character is facing. Throughout the game, every character has a chance of dying, and you need to use your actions to keep them alive. I'll touch on these moments as I go over the story, but note some of these deaths can be pretty gruesome, especially for the engine the game's on. So remember, your actions have consequences. We can't recruit anyone that has an X beside their name, so we recruit our friend Nei. To the right, we find a stone pillar, and as we shout at the ocean, Nei prompts us to head back to Sean Connery. Professor Connery informs us that it's an obelisk. The hieroglyphics on it state that the Pharaoh's son watches and waits to go to the underworld Duat. Interesting, but we need to find a way to continue our journey, so use the push action to topple the obelisk and make a bridge. Hopefully desecrating it doesn't come back to haunt us. Ahead, we find a boat in surprisingly good condition, and a disturbing looking mummy. Freaked out, we report back to Tsuchida, who exclaims it's in phenomenal condition, but to Kuroe's disappointment, it can't be taken outside as it would deteriorate. He presses us to then find a way to get the boat sailing so we can continue on. With everyone excited and unconcerned about the ancient boat's durability, we use the pull action on the sail and begin our voyage across the river. As we chat with the crew, Rin gets her foot stuck. We go to help, but it turns out she's a lying brat. She accuses Ayuto of doing inappropriate things to her, leading to Nei punching him. Wanting to relieve some stress, he heads to the starboard side and shouts, "Breast fire," and we gain the shout action. I looked it up, and it's an attack used by Mazinger Z, a 1970s mecha manga of the same name. His relief is short-lived, as water begins to flood the ship. What could have caused this predicament? Was it because Nei knocked us down? No. It must be due to global warming. Man, I love these moments of levity throughout the game. It really helps ease the tension before something terrible happens. You know, like a boat sinking. In an attempt to reduce excess weight, Ayuto channels his inner Spartan and kicks the mummy overboard. Unsurprisingly, Tsuchida informs us that our efforts are in vain, as mummies weigh almost nothing due to lacking any bodily fluids, and all we've done is incur the mummy's wrath. We've already desecrated an obelisk, and nothing happened. Why would kicking the mummy... Oh shit. As Ayuto swims for his life, a voice rings out. Thy audacity lay bare to judge. and the mummy from earlier grabs onto him, starting a battle. The mummy's visage is more terrifying than the fight itself. Remember, you have the baseball cap. He doesn't. Hit it with your basic attack and it should fall before you do. After breaking the mummy's head with his fists, Ayuto wakes up on the shore near the team, who barely managed to get to land before the ship sank. It seems no one else saw the mummy that was drowning him, and they chalk it up to him having a bad dream. While pondering if the mummy was passing judgment for his disrespect, Tsuchida elaborates that we crossed the River of Styx and arrived at the Hall of Mott, or Hall of Two Truths, a place where the dead were to be judged. While we slept, he sent 3 of the most qualified ahead: Sai the tour guide, Soji the journalist, and of course, Rin, the 9-year-old girl. As lead surveyor, Ayuto follows after them. Rin, as mischievous as ever, tricks Ayuto into thinking that there's a monster ahead, then trips him down the stairs. This little girl is gonna get somebody killed, but at least she wasn't completely lying. There is a child statue in the room downstairs. Tsuchida deciphers the hieroglyphics on the walls, which state, "The blameless one shall guide us to the true path." He explains in Egyptian culture, children were considered blameless. Ayuto, he disagrees, claiming Rin is a devil spawn. This upsets her and she runs off alone, and now it's up to us to bring her back. Before chasing after her, we talk with the crew and learn something interesting. Sai tells us that Rin was not a part of the tour group, and the others, they don't know where she came from. On a side note, if you talk to Sayori, she'll get annoyed and inflict 1 point of damage to you. It seems Ayuto's not much of a ladies' man. I used the shout action after this, and he yelled, "It's a good day to be a big G." If you use the shout action throughout the game, Ayuto will shout all kinds of random quotes. Pretty cool. Following Sean Connery's advice, we head the direction the child statues point, fighting an army of frogs and asps along the way. You'll notice when some enemies die, they have a death animation. The mummy from earlier lost its head, and the asps here have their eyes go black. It's a simple but effective feature that adds a bit of satisfaction and creepiness to winning a battle. Find a hole, obtain the crouch action, and use it to go through. On the other side, we find Rin and another child statue. She points to the floor, claiming to have found the true path on the opposite side of the wall. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. But fool me 3 times, and one of us might die. The statue also points at the wall, so to be safe, go where she points and use the crouch action to investigate. It turns out she wasn't lying this time, as the scratches turned out to be another statue hidden in the ground. Whether she discovered it due to her height or being a blameless one, trusting her seems to have been the correct choice. Suddenly, the statue surges forward, crashing through the wall. Ayuto wonders if the statue only activated after he chose to believe Rin. This was a judgment moment. If we chose not to believe Rin and went on ahead down the stairs, she would have died, crushed by the statue against the wall. Will the others be judged? If so, how and for what? Something to keep in mind. Down the stairs, we enter a hallway with a door at the other end. Open it and discover the next room is filled with poisonous gas. Oh great, a gas chamber, and we may have inhaled some of the fumes. No need to fear though, Tsuchida's here to tell us everything's fine. Since the poison didn't kill us outright, it must be slow acting, requiring a large amount to be inhaled. He has an ingenious plan to make it through the chamber. It's so amazing you wouldn't thought of it yourself. All we need to do is hold our breath. Understandably, this sets Yoko off. With the boat sinking and Rin almost getting killed, she's at her wit's end. Mitsuru, however, doesn't care for her hysterics and calls her, quote, dead weight. Our knight in shining armor, So Kyosuke, rushes to Princess Yoko's defense and punches the evil Mitsuru to the ground. Unfazed by the theatrics, Tsuchida prompts everyone to form pairs to go through the chamber, but Sayori runs inside before they're decided. Our other hero, followed by Nei and Rin, goes to help the damsel in distress, finding her passed out on the floor. Short on time, we head to the opposite door and find it won't budge. With some quick thinking, use the pole action and the door swings open. We hurry on through and the others begin to arrive in pairs. First is Kyosuke and Yoko. The 4 high school grads discuss how it's strange for a teenager to travel so far from home alone as they traveled as a group of 4. This leads to Ayuto asking Rin the burning question. Where did she come from? Turns out, she reluctantly lives in Egypt, not far from the pyramid. She moved here with her father when his company was transferred here. She tends to play in the area and happened to be nearby when Tsuchida was gathering the tourists. Sai and Soji enter next and something strange. Soji comments about seeing that side of her, and she remains quiet, looking nervous. Ayuto asks if Sai can tell us anything about Sayori, and she informs us that she initially booked a trip for two, but changed it last minute to just herself. Did something happen to someone close to her? Before we can think on it, Tsuchida and Kuroe arrive while bickering. The professor states with everyone present that it's time to get back to work. As per usual, talk with everyone before continuing on. Rin's hungry, Yoko's scared, and Mitsuru is... Where is Mitsuru? Did Tsuchida forget about him after Kyosuke hit him? Turn around and use the push action on the door this time. Similar to Sayori, Mitsuru is unconscious, choking on the toxic fumes. If you had continued forwards as Tsuchida had asked, Mitsuru would have become the dead weight. After you drag him to safety, he explains that the door wouldn't open, and a voice called out to him. He doesn't recall the words, but it gave him a sense of euphoria, lulling him to sleep. 2 have heard a voice, and 3 have been judged. Remove the log from the door and earn the take action. The atrium is expansive, full of pharaoh statues, hieroglyphics, and staircases leading downward. After going down several flights with no end in sight, the group takes a rest. Tsuchida gushes over all the Egyptian artifacts and murals. Kuroe reminds him that they can't sell anything since the expedition is unsanctioned, but he brushes it off, wanting to go deeper. He notes Sayori's missing, and with us now being an expert at finding people, we backtrack. We find her standing near a ledge, gazing longingly at something. Curiosity getting the better of us, we use the take action and find out it's a picture of a boy who seems a bit older. Sayori's distressed, begging for it back, stating it's more important than her life. Ayuto wonders if he passed away or something, and that she was going to jump in order to join him. This is a critical moment. Even if it seems like you're being an asshole for stealing someone's photo, you need to hold on to it. By keeping the photo, you prevent her from turning what Ayuto thinks into reality. Head back down, and Soji decides he'll also help explore, dragging Sai with him. Based on what happened earlier, I don't trust the man, and Sai's been pretty shaken ever since. Sneaking behind them, we find Soji has her pinned against the wall. He claims as a journalist, everybody has skeletons in their closet, and people would do just about anything to keep them hidden. As a price to keep her secret, he demands a sexual favor. Before it can escalate, we run up and confront him. He states that he's done nothing wrong, and that Sai isn't who he thinks she is. She is a drug trafficker. He discovered this information while crossing the chamber with her, and bags of white powder fell from her pocket. After telling Ayuto, drugs are bad, he runs off, and Sai confirms what Soji said is the truth. She uses her front as a tour guide to easily travel from country to country without suspicion, and to smuggle the drugs in the process. After this revelation, a voice once again rings out. Thy depravity lay bare to judge. The ceiling begins to collapse, and a mummy latches onto Sai's leg. I would argue Sai is the most difficult crew member to save, and the one that most people lost on their first playthrough. No matter what you do to the mummy, the ceiling will collapse, turning Sai into a bloody mess. So, we have to deal with the ceiling first. Remember that log from earlier? That piece of wood we tossed to the side and forgot about? After moving it, you need to use the take action and add it to your inventory, while underneath the collapsing ceiling, use the log from the menu screen to place it on the ground. Then, we have to punch the mummy known as the restrainer back into the dirt. It's a lot more difficult than the first one, but spam your attacks on it, use first aid as you need, and it'll lose its grip on Sai's leg. After surviving her judgment, she vows to do whatever she can to get everyone to safety. She reminds us to keep an eye on our surroundings, especially above us, giving us the look up action. Exiting the room, Soji exclaims there's another person here at the bottom, a woman. He hands us a photo as proof, then rushes downstairs. There's no woman in the photo, only a feminine statue in the ceiling. Maybe she climbed up the statue and hid behind its head. Regardless, we're headed that direction, so continue towards the bottom, and along the way we find that statue. Keeping Sai's advice in mind, use the look up action when near it. Turns out the photo only included the ceiling, not because Soji's bad with his camera, but because the lady can float. Upset at ruining her game of hangman, she dive bombs into us. Cleopatra is much easier than the restrainer. A few rounds of normal attacks and she turns into a pile of sand. After landing on said pile, Soji explains that while he was getting intimate with the woman, she turned into the sand, leading to his predicament. Now Soji, sand's coarse, rough, and it gets everywhere, so let's just move on. We reach the atrium's bottom floor, and it's full of all kinds of treasure: gold coins, jewelry, vases, and more. Tsuchida explains that this area could serve as an altar where offerings are placed to help guide the pharaoh's soul to Aru, the heavenly paradise. As Kuroe contemplates taking some treasure, Tsuchida sternly reminds him that it all belongs to the Egyptian government, but if he wants to smuggle it, he can do so through his stomach. The two's relationship has definitely gotten worse since the start of the expedition, and with Kuroe hinting that the professor holds a grudge, the plot thickens. Kyosuke also thinks about taking something, but decides against it, not wanting to embarrass himself in front of Yoko. To his chagrin, Yoko begins to cry and latches onto Ayuto, claiming she's the next one to be judged. As Ayuto comforts her, Kyosuke gets incredibly jealous. He calls him a woman-stealing bastard, and Nei runs out of the room upset as well. Tsuchida's quick to tell us that polygamy was accepted in ancient Egypt, but jealousy between women was a very serious crime. We rush after her, hoping to clear up the misunderstanding and prevent another judgment. Outside the atrium, it's full of lush greenery. Thousands of feet below the surface and no sun, it's another mystery to add to the pile. We find Nei and learn more about the teenage drama. Yoko's had a crush on Ayuto for a long time, and only views Kyosuke as a good friend. She hoped that Yoko would eventually develop feelings for Kyosuke because she also has a crush on Ayuto. As she confesses, she's dragged into a nearby coffin and it spirits her away. When Ayuto gets involved with women, it seems that bad things just happen. Meanwhile, Tsuchida and Kuroe are back to bickering. One is called a greedy son of a bitch, and the other a child-endangering asshole. They stop when they hear a strange noise. Ayuto follows the coffin as it enters a giant temple. An unknown force prevents us from entering, shocking us when we try. I guess we'll need the professor's help to find a way inside. But that's easier said than done, as the strange sound was the jackal statue of Anubis coming to life, which then attacks Kuroe. Tsuchida states it's punishment for stealing the pharaoh's treasure, and tells Kuroe to discard it if he wants to live. And he complies. The jackal stops its attack, but then suddenly lunges at Yoko. We partner up with our friend zone pal and go to save her. This fight is the first and last where violence isn't the solution. The jackal's claw is on the necklace, and we're given the hint moments prior to discard what's stolen. To save the princess, we need to use the take action to remove the necklace around her neck, causing the Anubis to vanish. It's an awesome combination of action-based puzzle solving and turn-based combat merging as one. It's a real shame that this is the only time that it's used in the game, and I feel that other boss fights could have included the action mechanics into them, providing more variety other than simply punching the enemy to death. After saving Yoko, she confesses to shoplifting the necklace from a department store. Her friends had shoplifted before, so in a moment blinded by greed, she swiped the necklace. As she cries again, regretting her past actions, Kyosuke attempts to comfort her, saying that even he's stolen before, but we know our man is too good-natured for that. At the front of the temple, Tsuchida explains we've reached the pharaoh's burial site. The falcon-headed statues are of Horus, the god which pharaohs were considered the living incarnation of. As Ayuto informs the group what happened to Nei, I want to say we're almost at the end. It's been quite the wild ride through the pyramid. We've sailed an ancient boat, punched mummies back into the afterlife, and saved a few damsels in distress. All we've left to do is save another, find a pharaoh, and escape the pyramid in one piece. The force blocking the entrance has dissipated, and we arrive at the temple's main hall. There are 6 chambers, each with a sarcophagus identical to the one Nei was inside. There's no response from any of the sarcophagi, even when we shout at the top of our lungs. When we try to open one, Tsuchida stops us. He says the statue in the main hall is of Hathor, the consort of Horus. This combined with the hieroglyphics reveal that these are the burial chambers of the pharaoh's wives, and a trap will spring if anyone other than the pharaoh disturbs their eternal rest. 5 wives, 1 Nei, 1 chance. In order to win the game of sarcophagus roulette, we need to use one of our lifelines. Phone a friend. In your inventory, you have a cell phone, and when you use it, Ayuto remarks it's how he and his friends keep in touch. Use the cell phone in the main hall, and we'll see a ringing text appear over one of the rooms. Now, don't question how there's cell service, or if the ancient Egyptians figured out wireless communication years ago. Just go inside, use the take action, and we'll find her sleeping beauty. Nei doesn't recall anything after the treasure room. It seems she's forgotten her moment of jealousy and her confession. After helping her out of the coffin, Ayuto passes out, all the stress finally catching up to him. Upon waking up outside, he and Nei share a romantic moment, but of course, Tsuchida interrupts, reminding us that we still have one job left to do. Head up the stairs and into the temple's inner sanctum. There he sits upon his throne, in an immaculate room untouched for centuries, the pharaoh Khufu. The group gathers, and Tsuchida and Kuroe examine the mummy. He's perfectly preserved, and as Kuroe checks to see how he's able to maintain his position, he makes a shocking discovery. The pharaoh has a pulse. He's still alive. Tsuchida poses a hypothesis. The pyramid acts not as the pharaoh's resting place, but as a place of ritual. Pharaohs were considered gods, and to obtain godhood, an individual's soul needed to be tested. Khufu overcame the pyramid's trials and was deemed worthy to ascend the throne. He sits clinging to life, but pass the legacy on to the next pharaoh. He concludes the hypothesis by saying there's one more order of business to take care of. Tsuchida lashes out at Kuroe, asking how can he stand in front of the pharaoh and not be judged for his actions. Kuroe defends himself, saying what happened to someone named Shizumi was a tragedy, and he did everything he could. Taking matters into his own hands, Tsuchida draws a pistol and shoots Kuroe, killing him. He explains that this was the true purpose of the expedition, not the once-in-a-lifetime discovery, not the treasures within the pyramid, but the judgment of a man known as Koji Kuroe for the crime of forsaking his daughter, Shizumi. Tsuchida recounts that he, Kuroe, and Shizumi were present during the Luxor massacre, a terrorist attack which took place in Egypt in November 1997. It's a real incident where over 60 people died, among them being Japanese tourists. Shizumi was shot during the attack, and Tsuchida begged Kuroe to perform surgery to save her life. Kuroe refused as he was only a medical student and not a licensed physician. If he failed in the operation, he would be unable to become a doctor in the future. Tsuchida never forgave Kuroe, as he never showed regret over his daughter's death. As he finishes his story, the pharaoh stands and collapses a pillar onto Tsuchida. In his final moments, he accepts the punishment for murder. He praises Ayuto and hopes he doesn't become old and bitter like he did. The second pillar falls, finishing him off. The group then tries to escape, but Kyosuke is grabbed by a psychic power and lifted above the throne. If we want to save our best friend and escape this pyramid, we have to punch one more mummy back into the dirt. Before the final fight, we can select up to 4 other party members. If you have less than 4 people remaining, you'll have to fight the pharaoh with a party of 4, 3, or even just Ayuto. My team consisted of Rin, Sai, Sayori, and Nei. Khufu is the most difficult fight in the game, but he does have a weakness: status effects. Sai's fancy footwork can reduce his chance to hit, and Sayori's cold stare can prevent him from using his abilities. Have Nei buff up your party, use first aid as necessary, and the pharaoh will finally be laid to rest. After the battle, Ayuto realizes that there's blood on his hands. Khufu was alive, a living, breathing human being, and he killed him. Kyosuke assures him that he did what he had to, and that Khufu wanted to die. After spending centuries alone at the bottom of a pyramid, he wanted to be free from his eternal prison. As the room begins to shake, Kyosuke then poses a question. With the pharaoh gone, who's maintaining the pyramid? The crew wastes no time running for the exit, except for Ayuto, who fruitlessly attempts to remove the pillars from Tsuchida's body. Kyosuke pulls him away, saying what's done is done and they've got to get out of here. As the pyramid collapses and the team makes their escape, I want to touch on an interesting gameplay mechanic. If any of the tour group died during the expedition, they'll be reanimated as mummies at the location of where their judgment took place. They will bar your path, forcing you to put them out of their misery. It acts as a reminder that you failed to save them, their blood in your hands, much like the pharaoh's. When we reach the river, it's a dead end. The boat was a one-way trip, and we can't swim in the river as it might be full of those fish from the start of the game. As all hope seems lost, Kyosuke remarks if only he was like Moses, who split the Red Sea. He lifts his arms and the river parts. It turns out when Khufu enveloped Kyosuke in the psychic energy, he was transferring the pyramid power to him. Kyosuke was the only person who never received the judgment, and he was deemed worthy to succeed the throne. This means that everything that's happened since the pharaoh's death has been due to Kyosuke's overactive imagination. Ayuto pleads with Kyosuke to just close his eyes and shut up his mind so they can cross the river safely. As the group exits the pyramid, the screen fades to white. It returns with Kyosuke waking up in his hotel room with the other high school graduates. During the escape, Ayuto knocked Kyosuke unconscious as his imagination was causing the pyramid to break down at an exponential rate. As punishment for assaulting the new pharaoh, he flicks Ayuto's forehead, stating he's no longer a godlike being. The Great Pyramid was the source of the pharaoh's power, and after reaching the outside, he no longer has access to it. The other tour members begin to swing by the room, offering their thanks and bidding farewell. Rin plans to be more truthful, Mitsuru just wants more sleep, Sayori takes back her photo finally, Sai seeks to redeem herself, and Soji, he's still a selfish asshole. The game comes to an end as Nei and Ayuto go on a date at a local restaurant. They take in the bright blue sky, vowing to live their lives to the fullest. Peret Em Heru genuinely surprised me. For a game that can be beaten in about 2 to 3 hours, it really nailed its core concepts. The dark atmosphere combined with the unsettling music, it made the pyramid a blast to explore. The characters felt fleshed out, each with personality and not simply narrative plot devices. The art, especially the sprite work, was terrific, and the puzzles were fun and engaging. My only real gripe I had was I wish Ayuto's actions had more use in the combat sections, in particular, the boss fights. However, combat wasn't the focus of the game, and rather a means to showcase the detailed images of the terrors which lurked inside the pyramid. All in all, I thoroughly enjoyed the game, and I highly recommend you give it a shot. My playthrough kept everyone alive, but the story and characters' interactions change based on who's alive, which adds to its replayability. If you have a few hours and want to experience 90s horror at its finest, you can't go wrong with Peret Em Heru. Thanks for watching, and I appreciate you stopping by.